We know how this goes. We know the answers. We know how to tell the stories. We know what videos to play. We know what songs to sing. And every Sunday, it is the same thing. Every Wednesday, it is the same thing over and over and over. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing until it's not. Until God shows up and he does something, whether in a massive group or in the life of one child and in the life of their family. And if we're not engaged, we're going to miss that opportunity. If we're not engaged, we're going to miss that moment where everything's not the same anymore, whether it be for one individual or an entire room. So I think 100% that's good, being engaged.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we dive into conversations about life and share stories of faith. We're thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime listener, someone who calls the Orchard home, or you're just stopping by, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spiritual formation, and daily life as we invite guests to share their stories with us. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's do this together. This is Let's Talk About That, where you can be encouraged and inspired by God's work in our lives.
All right, we're back. Let's talk about that on location for now the second time at Orange Conference. We did this before at Bold, and we're doing it again at Orange, and we actually have some of the same people in the room, so that's going to be fun. But Orange Conference is a trip we take each year with leaders from our Next Gen ministries, that's students and kids, elementary, preschool, nursery. Bring them up here, invest for a few days, eat some good food. I kid you not. The best chicken sandwich I've ever had in my life. Chick-fil-A, Kick Rocks, whatever. That was phenomenal. I don't care. That might be look, Chick-fil-A may be Jesus chicken, but the Lord touched what I ate this evening. I'm telling you, it was phenomenal. I'm excited. Got my man, the Deucer, on mic with us this evening.
What's up? Yeah, we're here.
We're here. Chris is running the board to make sure things don't get too crazy, because we got a room full of about, 15, 20 leaders in here that are going to share, because this conference is all about the next generation. And one of the things that one of the things I learned in one of my breakouts is the difference between generations and how every generation kind of has their own thing. And so we're going to play a game to get started with the podcast. And so we have several of our Generation Z leaders that are at the table right now. So let's start. Let me let you guys introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are, what location you go to, why you're here. We'll start down here.
I'm Andrew Pacheco. Can you hear me?
I got you.
Okay, good. I'm Andrew Pacheco. I go to the Live Oak campus, and I'm here because Lucas asked me to come.
That's a great answer.
Great.
That's a great answer. All right, and sitting next to you is?
Kaylee Cuffey.
Wait, the Kaylee Cuffey?
Okay.
Like the Kaylee Cuffey from the Bold podcast? Wow, this is awesome. You don't get to see state weightlifting champ. All right. So, all right, twice. What location are you from?
Live Oak.
Why are you here?
Because I need to learn how to deal with middle school girls.
Yeah. Lord bless you. All right, next.
Hi, I'm Haley Wingate. I'm here because I'm a part of the Lake City location, sometimes Brantford, not very often. And I am in our 252 room pretty much every single Sunday.
Okay, what's 252?
Our first grade through fifth grade class.
What do you do in the room?
I teach them about Jesus, you know.
Good answer. All right, on the end here.
I'm Paul Porcio. I'm at the Lake City location, and I'm here because Chip asked me to come.
Okay, so you may, otherwise know Paul as Portal Paul from the Super Bowl commercial. Did you guys see the Super Bowl commercial? Yeah, so we did like a Facebook video before Easter. Oh, there he is. Come on over here, big guy. Before Easter, where we said like Easter's our Super Bowl, and we did like, some kind of football funny stuff, and we introduced Portal Paul, and half the people at Lake City, that's what they think his name is Portal Paul. So, but it's not Portal Paul, it's Paul Porcio. Is that Cajun?
French.
You definitely have a French accent. All right. And just making his way into the room is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Eli Humphreys. You want to say, hey, Eli?
Hey.
He crushed it. All right. So we're going to play a game to start because you all are in Generation Z, and we actually have 4 generations in the room right now. We have Generation Z here at the table. We have millennials, right? We have a few millennials. I'm a millennial. I'm like barely get into the millennial range. So
it's crazy that we're both. I'm barely made it.
What do you mean it's crazy that we're both, Chris?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Golly.
10 years apart.
Look, the dude who spoke on stage in our main session tonight, like he was rocking like the shirt like halfway buttoned down, spray tan with the undershirt and the highlights in his hair. And he's 41. I'm 40. This is what a 40-year-old looks like right here. Golf polo and gray hair. That's what a 40-year-old looks like.
I was texting Michael during it, and we both agreed that Chip needs some linen pants and sandals and everything like that guy has. Highlights, but with really long hair.
Yeah, I'm going to pray on that.
For the next Beaches series.
No, not happening. So we have millennials. We have some Gen Xers in here looking across the room at Buffy. How you doing? Yeah, you're Gen X. You know you're Gen X, right? You're Gen X. All right. And then we have a boomer. I don't know who it is. The boomer. I don't know. That's Pastor Eddie. For what it's worth, we also have a couple other Gen Xers that are here on the trip, but they're all in bed. So shout out to Buffy and Eddie for being here. Look, you guys don't know how long I've worked to convince everybody that Aaron's older than I am. So that just makes my heart so happy that just happened. Oh, that is phenomenal. So, wow, if this isn't the highest rated podcast, we're doing something wrong. I don't know. Dozens of listeners. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to throw out a word that is going to be slang term used by the boomer generation and see if you guys can guess what that term means.
This is my language.
This is your language? Yes. Okay, so if I say fuzz, what does that mean?
In your belly button?
No. What?
Don't get yourself in a fuzz.
What? No, you're awarded no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Is it the fuzz in the soda?
Nope.
Is this something to do with confusion?
Nope.
Wait, hold on.
Like, don't complain.
Nope.
Can you use it as a sentence?
Yeah, watch out for the fuzz.
Spell it.
Oh, the cops.
The cops. The fuzz. The po-po. Okay. Paul, you were a deputy at one point, man.
He was the fuzz.
He was the fuzz. All right. Let's take it a little bit easier. What about square? What is something square? What does that mean?
It's good. Like it's
no, like a loser, like a square, like you're square, like a loser, like a
loser. Yeah, checks out. A freak. Wow. Look, this is a family-friendly podcast right here. My gosh. All right. What if somebody says you're the cat's meow?
You're bad. You're bad. Like, you're good. You're like, you're cute. You're fire.
You know bad. You know she's bad.
You can't just throw out every word and say that's not it means.
The risen.
The risen?
What?
Eddie, how would you define the cat's meow?
Hello.
Oh, no. For those of you who couldn't hear, that was Beth Blaylock was his answer there. All right, that's phenomenal. What about this? If somebody asked you, what's your bag? What are they asking?
How much money you got?
To the table?
Huh?
No.
What'd you say? What you bring to the table? What'd you say?
How much money you got?
How much money you got? Any other guesses? Eli, what do you think? What's your bag?
I don't know.
Eddie, what does that mean? What's your bag? It means kind of like, what's your deal? Like, what do you got going on? Like, what's going on? Yeah, well, yeah. What are you carrying around? How about this one? If somebody says that they are grody, what is grody?
Nasty.
Gross.
Yeah, yeah. That was pretty easy.
I like that.
A couple more. What's moo juice?
Milk?
Juice. Use it in a sentence.
Moo juice?
Moo juice.
Like milk? Moo juice.
Milk.
Is it milk?
It's milk.
Who would say that?
What? Eddie would say that. That's what would say that. Yeah, Ali.
I would never go to the store and be like, oh, I'm picking up some moo juice. I'm sorry.
Bringing it back. All right. Last one. What are you doing if you're dropping a dime?
Throwing a
A
football.
lot of money.
Throwing a football.
Both of those are incorrect. Thanks for playing.
We're dancing.
Nope.
Dropping your.
Drop the.
Well, then you can't whisper it in our ear. What do you say?
He said, "Is it going to the bathroom?"
Stop, buddy.
No, it's not. But I appreciate you trying to make clearly say that. That's great. We don't know.
I've been silent.
You've been silenced. I need a mute button on it. That'd be great. What do you think? Nothing? Eddie, if you were dropping a dime, what would you be doing?
Like buying something expensive?
Throwing a football.
No.
Dropping dimes down.
You would be making a phone call from a phone booth because you were dropping a dime in.
Dime? I thought it was like a quarter.
I thought it was.
Eddie's not an old boomer. It was a quarter by the time Eddie did it. So, yeah. Say it again. More minutes? I don't know that. I don't know that I've ever used a payphone.
Well, obviously my mom has used it a lot of times because she's old.
Wow, Haley.
Older.
Wow.
Once again.
All right. Well, that was interesting. That was interesting, but there was some debate. We'll flip the table around. Eddie, there was some concern amongst some of the Gen Z. Do you know what they were referencing from the stage when they said IG? IG. Yep, it was one of the speakers, and she said something about your IG.
Don't she?
Wow.
I told you.
Instagram.
And
All right, fair enough. Buffy, do you know what a Finstagram is?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I used to have one. You got mad.
It's a fake Instagram.
Finsta.
We call them trolls. Troll accounts. Burners.
They're spams now. It's like changed. It's merged.
You're a bot, Haley.
Much wait a second.
All right. So what we want to do during the podcast this afternoon is something, or evening, I guess. It's night. It's 9:30. I'm already tired. It's past my bedtime. We do this every year, Orange, where we get everybody in a room and we debrief. And when we debrief, we just say, hey, tell me something that you learned today or the last couple of days. Tell me something that you're taking away from today. And I thought it'd be a good time to do that with the microphones in the room. And really just kind of hear from everybody, not just our Gen Zs, but our millennials, our Xers, our boomers. You know, what does our boomer, not the boomer, he's our boomer. What did you learn? What do you have? And just kind of let that conversation take care of itself. So Kaylee and Andrew, they came ready. Yeah, they got their phones out, notes. So,
Oh, we can do that?
yeah, it's open no quiz. Open no quiz. So why don't you guys start us off? What's one thing that you've taken away from Orange so far that you think's worth sharing?
Can I go first, or do you want to go first? Well, in our workshop block, this guy said that grief doesn't expire, and that really stuck with me. Like when you lose someone important, it always sticks with you. So you always have days where it's like, man,
Yeah.
I wish they were still here.
For sure. I lost my mom when she was 50 years old, 2 weeks before my youngest son, Chasen, was born. And weirdly enough, like all four of my grandparents were still alive. I'd never lost any aunts, uncles, cousins. Like that was the first person really close to me that I lost. And so it's really the first time I dealt with like real grief as an adult and everything. And so kind of the phrase that I started saying is, I don't know, it gets better. It just gets different. And so it's kind of like the same thing. Like it doesn't go away. Right. So why was that one for you that you were thinking was a takeaway?
Well, the first person I ever lost was my dad, and I recently lost him. So
Yeah.
I think me and my family have all been struggling, and we've all been in different areas of grief. So it was very comforting. Like that whole workshop was super comforting. Like he didn't like try to sugarcoat anything. It wasn't like, oh, it's okay. Like everything's going to be okay. No, like grief is still constantly going to be there. It's an ongoing process. It's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And somehow that made it comforting, especially because we have young girls in our church that, go through loss and they think, oh man, well, I have to get over it. I have to cry, get over it. I got to keep going. It doesn't stop.
Yeah. So it was comforting to you because the thought was, no, I don't have to get over this. It's something that is going to stick with me. So what do you take away from that for you personally going forward? Just the it's okay, or is there something more?
I think I can have more peace, like in the process, like it's going to be, when those hard days come, like I can sit there and remind myself, these aren't going to go away and I don't have to push them away. Like I don't have to just, make it to where I don't tell anybody about it, or I keep it to myself because that's not normal. Like it's a normal thing. It's just going through the process of grief.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was one of the speakers this morning that said every emotion is God given, right? And that includes, grief. And so I think that's really good.
I think so. Actually, all four of us sat on that same one together, and I think something.
All four. They can't see you. Paul's sitting at the table.
All four of us.
My bad. Anyways, but one thing that he said at the very beginning, somebody made a statement. He asked a few people, like why they chose that class, like what led them to choose that class. And the last dude, he was like, I never experienced grief before. Like my great grandma is still alive. Like I've never experienced grief. And then the speaker, his name is John. He made the statement. He said, well, grief isn't death. Like death is a type of grief that you have to grieve, my bad. But he made a point that like sometimes the hardest things to grieve are the things that are still there, and it's not a tangible thing that you can feel. Like when somebody dies, there's a funeral, you see them go in the ground and they disappear. But then an example he used was like in a relationship, you don't see them go in the ground, they don't disappear. They're walking around, you can see them at the grocery store, but since that is gone, you have to grieve something that is still out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah, come on, Paul. You jumped in at the table.
Yeah.
You jumped back to the table for this.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to add to the topic. So, as Haley said, we're all in the same breakout session. And for me, something that stood out was he was talking about sorry versus story. Whenever you have a loved one that passes, for me, it was my brother. He passed away in 2022. Oftentimes, you find yourself telling the story to people who may not know that someone passed. So you begin to tell the story, but then as you tell the story, oftentimes you feel like you're just getting pity from people, like sorry for your loss, sorry that happened. And in those moments, you don't want to hear sorry because it doesn't make you feel better. And so he was kind of making this point that oftentimes whenever you tell the story of someone who you lost, it can feel repetitive, and it can kind of feel like just a cycle of just being sorry. But he said something that stood out to me. He said, do you tell the story because you want to prove to yourself that you love that person? And for me, that stood out. Like he said, for him, he lost his brother as well. And he found himself telling the story of his brother's passing to prove to himself that he loved his brother and that he still loves his brother with his brother not being there. And for me, that kind of stood out. And he said that whenever you tell a story of someone who passed, a loved one who passed, it's not just a speed hump to get over. It's someone's life who lived, who shared memories, who shared moments, who you loved, and that should be respectable and an honorable thing. And it's not something you just speed through just to get past it.
Yeah.
Take time to process it and to share that story with other people, because you don't know how it might help them or heal them as well.
Yeah, that's good. One of my favorite little books that talks about grief is a book by C.S. Lewis, who was a British author, theologian right around World War II. And when his wife passed away, he wrote a book called A Grief Observed. It's a really short little book. It's an amazing book for anybody that's dealing with grief. But one of the things that he said that in the book that really kind of just completely shifted my paradigm for thinking about something like that, and it goes back to the story idea, is that something cannot be fully enjoyed until it's been remembered. Because when you're in the process of it, it's still going on. The story's still being told. It's still being created. But it's only after something is completed and we get to step back and look on it that we can enjoy it more fully and more completely. And that was just like a paradigm shift for me. It's that, the grieving process and the remembering process is a form of that love that endures, that love that continues, and it can turn to joy. I will say, going on 11 years removed from my mother passing away now, that there is joy in memory, not just sadness in memory. And so, it is looking back on a completed story that you get to fully feel it, fully, enjoy it. I think that's good.
Well, and I like too that the breakout session speaker, he was talking about the day that he lost his brother. He got the phone call. He reacted the way that most people would if they lost a loved one. And he said that years later, he had a daughter who was on a ventilator, and I think it was 5 years to the date. 2 years to the date. I'm sorry. 2 years to the date. His daughter was taken off the ventilator, and it was on Good Friday. And so he was saying that was the worst day of his life. But then 2 years later, it became a blessing because his daughter, who had been on a ventilator since she was born, was taken off. But it was also on the day that we recognized Christ, who died for our sins, all on that same day. So good came from it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good.
So today, I think it was the other John was speaking, and he had said God's favorite hobby is redemption. So it tied in really well with what the other John was talking about in our breakout. He had said like about that story, which is kind of why I came up here, was to talk about that. So like his daughter breathed her first like breath on her own on the same day that his brother had breathed his last breath, right? So I think that God redeemed that day for him because he said like on the anniversary, every single time, like, and he had only had one anniversary of his brother's death, but he was talking about like he had like 1 month anniversary, 2 month, like each date, the 14th, every single month, he had just like been in this state of just like depression. Like he just like, all he could think about was like what could have happened, right? And then God redeemed that by giving his daughter breath on that day. So I think it was really cool to think about like how God can redeem situations, especially through grief.
That's good. The John that you're talking about, John Acuff, probably had my favorite line when he said, people won't ask for your help if you're too busy to help. I love that. That one hit me hard, right? Because, are you snapping in the microphone now?
Yes, I was.
That one hit hard because, like, it's no secret, everybody in the room right now, that, you know, we're missing a pretty big part of our Orchard family when our friend AJ got called to another church in Virginia, and just a few months before that, worship leader Shane, who had been here forever, took a step back from that to pursue his full-time business that he was starting. And my plate got full real fast, you know, doing lead pastor stuff and location pastor stuff and student pastor stuff. And can I tell you, like, it has been hard for me to when people have been like, hey, can you want to get together? You want to get coffee? Can you swing by the house? And I'm like, honestly, I'm booking appointments 2 weeks from now, right now. And that's like something I've never experienced in my life. And I feel terrible about it because as big as the Orchard ever gets, no matter how much God blesses, I think that people ought to be able to get a hold of their pastor and talk to their pastor. And, you know, that's something that Eddie and I have always talked about for years. He's super relational. But man, that hit hard, that if we tell people that we're too busy, whether because we are or we aren't, sometimes we just like to appear busy. One guy told me one time that people who are actually busy don't have time to tell you how busy they are. They just quit asking. And I think that goes back to something, Eddie, that you've talked about forever, is that if you're not intentionally making margin in your life for those things that come up unexpectedly, you're never going to get around to them. So that was something that stuck with me. All right. So who's next? Who's got a one thing that you want to step up to the mic and talk about, something that you learned at the conference today, yesterday, whatever, that you want to share, and let's talk about that. So did there? Chris got it. All right. So introduce yourself for me, please, ma'am.
Brittany Shear.
Is this your first time on the podcast, Brittany?
This is my second.
Wow. What an honor. All right. So Brittany, you're here with us at Orange. Why are you here at Orange?
Let's say like the kids because Lucas asked me. No, I'm kidding. It's why am I here? I found out when I got here, while I was here.
Okay.
I need to be refreshed. So my one thing, I won't say that it came from any speaker on the stage.
Yeah.
But I did.
Was it crumble cookies?
There's a lot of those, bro, not just one. Lots of good stuff from the stage, right? But I was telling them at dinner tonight, we were 10 minutes in the first session last night, and the Holy Spirit just got all over me. 10 minutes in, singing a song, I'm Desperate for You, and then nothing else, right?
Yeah.
And playing off of your busyness talk that we just had, like, I think I've just had this heart posture of student ministry like being another thing, work all day, get all of that done, and then student ministry, right? And then ministry, instead of like as I go doing ministry. I'm not saying that's always the case, right? The goal is to do ministry as we go. But I've just kind of been in this season of like, am I supposed to be doing student ministry? I told Lucas, I was like, I think I've done my time. Like, he's like, no. But I think we all go through those things, right? So the Holy Spirit was just like working on me of like nothing else. Like you can have it all, you can have the rest, but nothing else matters. And so I know that my place in student ministry is for a reason. And the reason that I have been struggling is just because of me and the posture of my heart. Like it's just another thing instead of something that I get to do. And when they said that right. he sees the fruit in the seed and we see the seed in the fruit. So sometimes all we see is planting all these seeds and there's no flowers growing, like just seed, water. And we're like, where is the fruit? Where are the flowers? But he sees the fruit in the seed. And so for me, it's just like been a refreshing, like this is what you're supposed to be doing, and this is why you're supposed to be doing it. So lots of things from the stage, but
good.
Just really
good
in me.
I like, so anybody else in the room, like have that tension of, it's not that I don't like what I'm doing, but at this moment, I'm not really excited about it and I'm feeling super aggravated. And then you get a little bit convicted that you feel bad about it. Aaron, you're nodding. Come up to the microphone. Talk to us.
Come on, Aaron.
Come talk to us. Because, truth be told, there are Wednesday nights that I'm like, I hate AJ. Why did he leave? But Wednesday night's also now one of my favorite nights on the back end of getting to hang out with students and everything. So I get that. I'm saying what you're feeling, Brittany, is not abnormal because I think all of us feel like, this is something extra on top of it, but we don't want to feel that way. And then you feel guilty about it and then you get excited. So why are you nodding your head so hard, Aaron?
Well, so
Wait, hold on. Introduce yourself.
Oh, hello. My name is Aaron Schrock.
Hello, Aaron. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
How's your new car? You like your new car?
I do. Apparently, I'm a Gen Xer now. My new car is great so far.
Yeah, Aaron got a new car just so she could drive people to Orange. That's a servant.
Yes, what a servant. I appreciate. That's how much I love Mary Beth Everett. Okay,
yeah, I love it. Yeah. All right, so back to why are you nodding your head for us?
So I've been to Orange quite a bit in the past. I worked in kids ministry for years and then moved up to student ministry and been there for years. And so Orange, not that I don't learn new things because I think we always are learning, but sometimes Orange for me is just a good refresher. It reminds me of why I give up Wednesday nights when I'm exhausted and I've been at work all day, and then I go home and I have to be a wife and a mom, and then I need to go and I got to be a small group leader to these kids, and it can be exhausting. It's pretty much every week, it definitely can be exhausting. So Orange is always why I like coming to Orange, is because it always just kind of, God just uses it to kind of refresh my soul a little bit and like pour into me for a couple of days and remind me why we do what we do.
Why do you think it's so refreshing? Like, is it just the why behind it? Is it we're in a different place and there's, cool things? Like, why do you feel like it's so refreshing?
I think one, you're with like-minded people. Everybody here, we're all here for kids and students. We're here because we believe that pouring into the next generation is so vital and it's so important. And each one of these kids and each one of these students is so important. And so being in a room full of like-minded people who we're all here, and we're all kind of at different stages of serving in these areas. And I think too, like when you're listening to the speakers and you're in these workshops, like God's just using that to remind you, hey, you're getting to be a part of these kids' stories, and if you
story thing's good.
Oh, yeah. That was my thing that I was going to talk about. So if you've never heard John Acuff speak, you are missing out. The man is a phenomenal speaker. I went to one of his workshops today, have a ton of notes about that. That was about helping teens see their potential and set goals. And it was great. But tonight,
one of the things he said is when you're a part of someone's village, you get to rewrite stories. And then he said the part about God's favorite hobby is redemption. And the best part about stories is that they're never over. So God has given us the opportunity to be a part of every child's story. And, you know, we have the opportunity to change the course of a kid's life, of a student's life. And it's just a refresher for me to like, it's not in vain, like showing up, you know, even when I'm exhausted, even when I don't feel like I have, like sometimes I feel bad because I feel like I'm trying to pour from an empty cup into these students. But yet, you know, I'll get a text from a mom later that night and be like, you know, so-and-so really enjoyed the conversations tonight. Like she just felt like she could be really open. And it's just like, thank you, God. Because, you know, sometimes I need that because I felt like I was pouring from an empty cup and God shows me like, hey, like even when you're feeling that way, you're still showing up and it matters. Like you're still doing what I've called you to do. And these students, I mean, they can tell, you know, you're a little off, like maybe, you know, high school students, they get it.
Yeah. Honestly, you know, I'm not sure that doesn't mean more when they can tell that it's a little bit off. And here's the thing that hit me thinking about that is that we miss students if they don't show up, right? You miss them because you're like, oh, so-and-so's not here tonight. I wonder what they got going on, you know, volleyball, baseball, sick, whatever.
Yeah.
But the group's still there. We go on. When our leaders miss, that's their leader, you know? And I think that there's something there about being that consistent presence that shows up week after week after week that builds credibility. I don't think being a small group leader in student ministry or even kids ministry is different from what they used to say about being a pastor. And I know, Eddie, you've heard this, you know, before, but somebody said there's like 3 seasons of being a pastor. It's where you're the pastor. Hey, we just got a new guy. He's the pastor of our church. You know, he came in. After you're there for a while, you get to be our pastor, which is just, oh, he's our pastor at our church. But after you've been there a while, you've built relationships. All of a sudden, no, that's my pastor, you know? And I think that's seasons that you go through as a small group leader as well, because it's just building that personal connection more and more. And, you know, I mean, truth be told, some days you don't feel like showing up. You know, some days you don't feel like giving your all. Some days you don't feel like relationship, but that's what makes it so important. You know, like we're here to tell kids feelings aren't facts. You can't live based off of your feelings. And sometimes that's what we have to do as leaders. And I think it's important that we hear, one, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Everybody feels that. Eddie, cover your ears because I don't want you to be disappointed in me. But there's some Sundays I'm like, we have church this week. Oh my gosh, you know. But I'm not lying. I mean, look, you get home from coaching 11-year-olds for 13 hours on a Saturday and, you know, I'm going to bed at 2 a.m. and I'm like, well, 5's coming quickly. So it happens. But you don't feel that way when you're in it, and you have to tell yourself that. I may feel that way going to it, but I don't feel that way when I'm in it.
Yes, I never regret showing up on a Wednesday.
That's why, man, can I tell y'all, I got some looks. I don't know how it was in Brantford or Live Oak, but I got some looks in the pre-service video this week, which, by the way, my least favorite time of our church service is the pre-service video, because every now and then people just stop talking and watch it. And what I said is, want you to come the next 4 weeks for this series. And if at the end of this next 4 weeks, you don't feel like that you've enjoyed it, that you've got something out of it, that God's used it in your life, then go back to the ball fields, go back to the river, go ahead, you know. And people are like, what did he just say? Like, I'm sitting in the upper right, left hand of the room, and everybody just turns and looks. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I believe that if you come, I've never heard somebody say, man, that was terrible. You know, and that's not just true of the Orchard. I don't know that I've ever heard somebody say, I regret the decision I made to show up today. I'm sure somebody has at some point, but there was probably extenuating circumstances. And it's true in church on Sunday mornings. It's true in kids' church. It's true in students' church. It's true in most things that we dread on the beginning because we don't feel like it. But once we get there and get in it, you're like, yeah, this is what I'm here for.
Right. We don't want something from you. We want something for you.
That's right. That's right. So unless you're Paul's very first welcome on a Sunday morning. I was covering for you, Corey. Why'd y'all out Corey? I was blaming the intern. Golly. Yeah, no, literally, Paul's first welcome, Paul told him, y'all meet me out back after service. Like, just because you're from Louisiana don't mean we are, Paul. What's going on? You know? No, Corey's first welcome on Sunday, he goes, at the Orchard, we want something from you, not for you. So, anyway, it was good. All right, Buffy, you hopped up. What's your thing?
So I was just, when Aaron spoke about, coming and like, you feel empty, you're pouring from an empty cup. He said tonight, like, feed my people and I will feed you. That really hit me. Like, if we just ask God, like, he's going to fill us up.
Yeah.
Like, start your day full, like, show up full, start your day with your identity in God. And that just, it is so true. And I think we just forget that because we do get busy. We are involved in so many things. We forget that he is our source. He's there for us. And we can just tap into that.
For sure. I think I've struggled with that idea of energy, emotional energy, relational energy, and all those things, because I have conflicting thoughts. So anybody who would like to jump in on this, I have conflicting thoughts. Eddie, you might be one to really speak to this too. Number one, I think energy is a limited resource. We have to choose what we spend our energy on. Number two, I think energy is a renewable resource because we can be re-energized. And number three, I think that supernaturally, and this is a little bit of, Buffy, I think what you're talking about, the supernatural, even if it's an ordinary supernatural, of God filling us so that we can pour back into others. But I don't know, I feel like there's a tension there. Like, I feel like, yes, I need to be careful of where I spend my energy so that I can spend it places that matter. That's a conversation that Eddie and I have had before. That's a conversation that I have with young guys all the time, especially like, hey, you can't be passionate about everything, because if you're passionate about everything, you're not going to have anything to give to one thing, right? But it's also renewable, because when we take care of ourselves and, when we don't eat crumble cookies and lemon bars and cheesecake, and my wife doesn't listen to this podcast, we can, take care of ourselves and have, renewable energy. But there are those moments where God shows up and he's like, I'm going to give you what you need for this right now.
Some of that is also like pouring into our teams and creating that team atmosphere that I think we do well at our church, but also reminding each other that we have to take care of ourselves. We have to have time. You have to have someone who's pouring into you as well. You can't just pour out all the time. And, one of the speakers talked about like having someone who's able to pour in you that has more experience than you. And so, and I don't mean this in anything about your age, but as
soon as I said generations, I knew where this was headed.
But it made me think like, But it did make me think like, who is that person for Pastor Eddie? Because he is everywhere. He is pouring in, especially at the Brantford location. He's doing it all. So it made me just wonder, like, who does he have that pours into him? Because he pours into all of us, like all of our teams. He's there. He's there for us, pouring into us, giving to us, making sure we have what our our needs met. So who's doing that for him? And I think we all at every location need to think about that with our pastors. Like, we need to make sure that we're pouring into them as much as they do us.
Yeah.
Important.
And we went to a cool breakout session talking about multi-generational collective in the church and bringing that together.
Like bringing different generations together.
Yeah. And that one of the ideas that was brought up was reverse mentoring the older from as a younger person. And that kind of goes into what you're saying.
Right.
There are things we can learn from a younger generation. So
absolutely, I need to know how to speak to my students because they speak a totally different language than I do.
Yeah, you just got to ask what's their bag, and they'll like get it 100%.
Yeah, I expect them to bring me their backpack.
I will say Eddie has been my mentor. Since I met him when he was Leanne's pastor, and he did counseling for us, and then from after the wedding, I was a pastor, and so he began to meet with me, monthly, and we'd get breakfast. And then there got to be a period of time where I got to do some reverse mentoring with Eddie. I got to explain to him the difference between Marvel and DC characters and what those are. And then I also got to explain the difference between a butt dial and a booty call, and how it's very important that we know the difference between those when we're talking on the stage. So why are y'all laughing? This is important to know. because if I never mind, I won't go that far. I will tell you, you got to come to the church if you want to hear the exact story.
You go back to the bold episode to hear that one.
Was it on the bold episode?
Yes, yeah.
All right, it was on the bold episode then. But no, I think that reverse mentoring really is a thing, because it is something where when we think of mentoring and pouring into somebody, that doesn't always have to be somebody that's further down the road than you are, because I think that what we're talking about is you're talking about giving to the next generation, serving the next generation. We need people in our life who refresh us. We need people in life who energize us. And I know, and I may be speaking out of turn a little bit, that while Eddie does have people in his life who do that, actually one of the ways Eddie energizes is not being with people at all. He likes to energize riding his bike down to the river and chill, and he's figured that out. And so I think that's a great lesson for us to learn, is we have to figure out as leaders, what is it that refreshes you? What is it that energizes you? Part of that has to be people pouring into you, but what else is there in your life?
Yeah, and that was something else they mentioned too, is like making sure that we're getting out in nature and taking a walk, like how much that really refreshes us. And like being with God when you're moving allows God to be in every part of you.
So that was one thing I jotted down this morning when one of the leaders was talking about emotional regulation in kids. And I love, they said when our bodies are in motion, our minds normally aren't. And I was like, that's pretty good. I like that.
As an educator, I have a back row in my classroom, and I know what students need to be there.
Yeah, the fidget row. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's good. I think, like say, you can be in nature, you can walk, you can be refreshed. However, anybody who said that exercising makes you feel better was not overweight. So let's, do a walk. Let's go outside. Let's be refreshed.
We can debate about that off the podcast.
Yeah, we can. And I'll show you how you're wrong. Give me 15 minutes on a treadmill, and I promise you I'm not energized. All right, Mr. Corey, you sat down at the table. What you got for us?
I did. Just into showing up, I took a class, The Art of Navigating Conflict and Crisis Within Teenagers. But it just talks about, in the moments of crisis, the quote was, you can fake a lot of things, but you can't fake being there.
Oh, that's good.
And so I remember times of crisis in my life, the people that were there, and that's what she shared, that the people that were there, and when her dad died, he was killed in a car accident, and the people that had showed up that night, the people that showed up for her, she remembered. And so she said, we have to be the same way for these students, that when they're in moments of crisis, whatever the crisis is, you can't fake being there.
Yeah.
And so that was important.
So I think one of the hardest things for me to learn as a pastor about that is that the being there is more important than what you say when you're there.
Absolutely. So from my cancer, when I sat at the house for 6 months, the people that just came by and sat there, I remember who they were. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to say nothing to me. You didn't have to bring me anything. It's the people that came and sat there.
Yeah. And that's a hard lesson for some of us. And, I'm looking at me and people like me. Like, obviously, I like to feel silence, right? But sometimes you don't need to feel silence. It's just the ministry of presence, that you're just there with them. And for me, early on in ministry as a pastor, I had to psych myself up to do that, because I was afraid of, I don't know what to say when I get there, and I think that's good. Just man, if you don't even know what you're going to say, don't let that stop you from being there, because the one thing you can't stop you can't fake his presence. That's good.
Right. And then even, in the time I spent with the high schoolers, the time I spent at FCA dealing with the baseball team, you gain points when you're there. You don't have to say anything.
So double click on that. So what do you mean we say with the baseball team? Which, by the way, Paul, Gen Z, do you know what I mean when I say double click? There was a thing on computers called a mouse, and it had a button, and you had to click twice to open stuff up. Yeah, it's kind of like double tapping your phone. Not really. Single tap. All right. So tell them what you do with that, with the baseball team, though, because I know what you're talking about, but everybody's not going to know what you're talking about.
So I've been the character coach, team chaplain, whatever you want to name it, for the Columbia High baseball team this season.
And what did that mean?
So I started just by showing up, being there. I'm alumni from Columbia, so I just showed up, being there. That turned into getting asked to do a Bible study. And so we've gone there, and now we do a Bible study once a week with, I think Monday, I had probably 15, 16 of them.
That's awesome. And so what qualifications do you have to be a character coach and a chaplain?
None.
That's the point, right? Like, that's the point. Like, this is something that anybody can do. The thing that you're doing is just showing up.
Right.
That's
right.
phenomenal.
And then how you handle conflict is one of the greatest ways you can show the love of Christ to the world. And so that was another quote from that class.
Yeah.
It's just the way just the presence of being there, you being there for them just shows God to them by just showing up.
Well, it's just that reminder, right, that you're not alone.
Right.
That there's somebody there. We had a speaker the first night tell a story about that, of how as a kid he was taught that, hey, no matter what you go through in life, you're never alone. God's always there with you. And then when you need it, it hits.
Absolutely. And it's just, you don't understand it till you understand it. And in having somebody show up for you, it's a visual representation of Jesus always being there for you.
Yeah. I think that's 100% right. That's good. That's good. You guys got anything to add on to that about being there, consistently showing up? Just go. Hey, I'm going to give you one of my favorite quotes from this week, and it relates to that. And it says the first step. This was Tim Elmore. He led one of the breakouts in the senior leader track, and this is what he said: the first step of leadership is getting off your butt and doing something. I love that. You ain't got to be, just get up and do something. You don't have to be qualified or have a massive plan. Just get up and do something. That's good. All right, Mr. Lucas Lott, welcome to the microphone.
Hey.
Wow, that's a good hey. You got a good radio voice, man.
It's late.
To be clear, it's 10:11. It's not that late. All right, keep going.
No.
Yeah, I've got everybody with kids just goes, what are you talking about? I've been ready for bed for an hour.
Yeah. My wife would say different. She's at home with all three of them without me. So,
all right.
Just got a text in the middle of this saying they're still awake. So, a couple of things. Both John Acuff.
I love me some Acuff.
Yeah, he is solid. Man, just some good quality conversation today. I've been struggling the last couple of weeks with a few of my older students, mainly because I've been on staff now 3 years. In June. And in those 3 years, these are probably the three students that I've poured into the most. And I've talked about them on the podcast before, but just some disappointment, right? Like they've kind of faded away. They're not really coming as much as they used to. And, that hurts as a leader because you see your intentionality in their life. You're like, man, I am trying to make a difference in your life. And so you see the breakaway, and so
and I'll throw a spoiler out there, and Lucas just said it, so make sure you hear it, is you don't mean anything when you don't show up, but pastors and leaders, it's always personal when you don't show up. It's hard. That's a battle we
you just start to think, am I doing a poor job? Like, did I say something to offend you? Is this not relevant
There's
to you
not
anymore?
A pastor, ministry leader, small group leader that doesn't have that thought.
Right. And so one of the things he said today, and this really hit me hard. I feel like my mom came and thumped me on the head. She said, he said during the breakout today at 3, he said, quit thinking teens should act like they're 34.
Wait, say that one more time.
He said, quit thinking teens should act like they're 34.
You know what? Fair enough.
I was like, man, you know what? I have far too often over these last couple months, I have thought, man, I wish they would grow up. Like, I wish that it would click with them and they would grow up. Like, they would start seeing the way that I think their life should go. And it's like, man, like, I feel like I have all the answers for you. And I just, I was really convicted in those moments when he said that, because I was like, man, I have done that a lot over these last.
You know what
months.
It's called when they don't act like that, though? When they act like, they still act like kids and teenagers and crazy and make bad decisions.
Still being a teenager.
Well, I was going to say it's job security since we're pastors.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm
just joking. It's fine.
No, that's exactly it, man. Just they're teenagers and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to fade away. And I don't know. My job is to still be there.
Well,
right?
I think it's important that they know that our presence, like Corey said, that our love, attention, investment is not conditionally based on their behavior.
Right. No, that's good.
Like, because you got to know, hey, I'm here because I'm a constant for you, no matter if you're constant or not.
Man, and on that note, to add to the conviction, the Monday before the Tuesday we drove up here, this past Monday, I got a text from one of these students who, again, I love this guy so much. He said, "Hey, man, I know I haven't been a bunch lately. I have applied for a scholarship, and I need a recommendation letter." And, right off the bat, I'm like, oh, man, here we go. He's a pastor. He said, "No, it has to be from somebody who's not family, and you're the first person I thought of." He's like, "Because I value our relationship." And I was like, okay, like, thanks, God. Don't.
Wow, that's awesome. But glowing recommendation and ends with, but they don't show up all the time.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. So
one more.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
You're good.
This is a good one because this is a story I didn't really want to share because it's heavy. But John Acuff said tonight, be an engaged leader. He said an engaged leader is a powerful thing, and I think far too often I disengage. So a few years back, let me show you guys a picture. There he is. Hold on, just give me a second. I want to introduce you guys to a boy that... So I was a year into ministry, full-time ministry, and I have a good friend who I served with for many years at my previous church. His name is Tim, and he's always been a very good example for me in ministry, just about being engaged, like always staying engaged. Excuse me. And so we had been on staff together for a year. He was the youth pastor at the time. He's now since kind of shifted into an executive pastor role, but I was the worship pastor there. I was helping him in student ministry regular. And so we would go out on Monday nights and we would visit, right? You remember those days when you'd go out on church visitation? You'd knock on doors, you'd get numbers from people.
Oh, boy, do I.
Yes. And so we visited this family that had just moved from California, like random. I don't know how we got their contact information. They had not come to church yet. They weren't believers. And so we just went and knocked on their door and said, "Hey, like, we're from the local church and we'd love, we know you have boys and we'd love for you guys to come and hang out with us on Wednesday night." And so the next Wednesday night, their oldest son, let me introduce you guys to Dylan. So this is Dylan. Everybody see a picture of Dylan. This is a while ago. This is like 7-8 years ago now. So Dylan, he comes the next Wednesday night and he is fully engaged, man. He starts coming on a regular basis and we're just intentional, right? We're just doing what we feel like we need to do. We're trying to pour the gospel into this kid. We're trying to stay engaged in his life. I'm texting him, he shows an interest in music and I'm leading worship on Wednesday night. So I'm like, "Hey man, let me teach you the guitar." Right. So he starts kind of learning the bass guitar. He starts playing the bass guitar. Eventually Dylan gets saved. He gives his life to Jesus. And because of Dylan giving his life to Jesus, his family comes on the day that he's baptized and they see the need in their life and his entire family gets saved. Dylan was 12 when this happened. He was 12. And so this 12-year-old boy gets saved. His whole family gets saved. On the note of being an engaged leader, we never know when someone's last day on earth is going to be, right? Like, when they're going to hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And his whole family gets saved because of Tim's, intentionality and engagement in his life, because of my intentionality and engagement in his life. Dylan gets saved. I watched God take over his life for like 4 or 5 years. They moved back to California because of his dad's job, and within less than a year, Dylan hydroplaned and died. And so the importance of being an engaged leader, man, is so valuable for me to hear because it encourages me to go back and to be engaged.
Yeah, I think it's really easy for us to check out of leadership sometimes because we know the playbook. We know how this goes. We know the answers. We know how to tell the stories. We know what videos to play. We know what songs to sing. And we take for granted the impact that has in the life of people who've never heard it before, or the kid who really hears it for the first time. And I think that there's it's as cliche as it's become around the orchard, it's the 32 trap, right? Like every Sunday it is the same thing. Every Wednesday it is the same thing over and over and over. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing until it's not, until God shows up and he does something, whether in a massive group or in the child of one life, or the life of one child and the life of their family. And if we're not engaged, we're going to miss that opportunity. If we're not engaged, we're going to miss that moment where everything's not the same anymore, whether it be for one individual or one or an entire room. So I think 100% that's good, being engaged. Eddie, you sat down here at the table with the microphone. What do you got for us? Something different?
Before I say that, I'm going to say this about Lucas. Lucas, this is why you're a great worship leader, man. I mean, it is partly about your talent musically, about your voice, about your guitar, but what makes you an incredible worship leader is your heart. And I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, we were actually. It's funny. You and Michael and I were driving to dinner and talking about Lucas. Like, man, Lucas acts like this big old, muscle guy, whatever. He's a big old teddy bear. Man's got a heart. He cries at the drop of a hat. That's my dog right there. I love it. So, what you got for us?
Well, actually, I was trying to wait till last because I wanted to hear from everybody, but I don't know if I'm going to make it or not.
What you said? Ashley says she'll go ahead of you.
Oh, yeah, go. Sure.
All right, go ahead.
From you. Absolutely.
Okay, so I was in a session today, and it was called...
Wait, introduce yourself.
My name is Ashley Dorn, and I teach 3 to 6 year olds. And my session at the Lake City campus, let me also add, my session that I went to today was the art of storytelling. So whenever we have those littles in class, we really want to paint the picture for them. So 3 things that I took away today were... Number 1, we want to be tangible. So the information that we're giving them, kids need to see how faith applies in their everyday life. Yeah. I mean, we don't want it to be, us telling them this story and then they're like, okay, what do I do with it now?
Yeah, and it's not the same as a story like I'm watching Spider-Man on TV story.
Right, exactly. The second was engaging. So whenever we have these littles, we want these activities to get children moving and creating a memory that is going to last a lifetime. So
that's good.
Whether that be, us doing a fun activity with them that they're going to remember, or it being something that, say, like one example was like Play-Doh. Like some kids don't get to play.
Like Plato, the philosopher?
No, like Play-Doh. Play-Doh.
I was going to say that was an unexpected turn.
I'm sorry.
That was an unexpected turn right there.
But like some children don't get to play with Play-Doh at home. So, letting them experience that at church. Yes, it may be messy. And that was one thing that kind of stuck with me. Like, hey, it may be messy. You may have to take a couple extra minutes after church to get that cleaned up. But that's going to be a memory that is going to last with them a lifetime. So engaging in those kids and making a memory that will stick with them. And then the third thing was personal. So we want to share our truth with these children. We want to show them, hey, this is what God has done in my life, and he can do this in your life too.
That's really good. I think when you're talking about the making it memorable, making it personal, one thing, I think it was at Orange that we heard this, is a kid's probably not going to remember everything that you tell them, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Very true. Very true.
And that's the memorable and personal. Like, those are the memories that stick with them too.
Yes.
That's really good.
And we want to put those anchors like in their hearts, because once it's in their heart, yes, they may drift away, but something will always tie them back to that memory or to that, hey, where did I feel loved? Where did I feel, most valuable? And I want that to be at church. And whether that be, them being 3 years old, 10 years old, like I want them to have those memories.
Yeah, and that's actually a conversation that we sort of kind of had, not in one of the sessions, but at dinner. It is just, not as leaders in the church, just as parents talking about, things that we expose our kids to or not expose your kids to. And how do you as a parent make those decisions? Because those are tough decisions, especially when your kids are boys who like wars in World War II and they want this and that. And it's like, well, do you know what happened to World War II? Because it wasn't pretty, but at the end of the day, and this is just my personal experience, is that what drives kids away from faith is when they remember that Jesus and the church made them feel alone and cold and judged and legalistic, that's what drives them away from faith. As long as the church is that safe, warm place where they can ask questions and try to discern for themselves what they can hold on to, what they can let go of, then that's a memory, like you say, that even if they stray, that they can come back to.
Right.
And I think that's really good.
And we talked about like the team too, like who is in your child's life as part of their team. And that team is going to change inevitably.
We'll edit it and make it the right word. It's fine.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
But it's going to change, throughout their life and as they grow and as they have different leaders, that may follow them through life. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I like it. Oh, go ahead.
To build on that, there was one of the workshops, I forget which one, but they were talking about giving the kids an opportunity to ask them what God is doing in their life.
Yeah.
Or what is God telling them that they should do with their life.
It's crazy that kids have answers to that, right? Like, Mary Beth, you went to a session, the title, There Is No Junior Holy Spirit. It's if this kid knows Jesus, they have the same Holy Spirit that we do. So that's extremely valid.
Just given that recognize, like, oh, yeah, God is speaking to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no, limit to when he can speak.
Maybe that's the next
throughout the generations.
Maybe that's the first bestseller we write at the Orchard, Eddie. Is it God or Taco Bell Kids Edition? If you listen to the podcast, you'll get that. It's fine. Haley, hop on. What were you thinking? You jumped in.
Okay, so talking about Ashley, she's talking about teams and then in the lives of these kids. But so whenever I first started serving, I first started serving at 7 and babies, and that was not allowed. But I did it anyways because I was here for 2 services every single Sunday.
There you go.
But when I actually started, I got onto a team. I was on a team with Ashley, and she wasn't only serving those kids. She was pouring into me without even knowing it. Every time, she's really, really good at making connections and being yeah. So this is what happened to me, and I'm just as I'm it's really watered down for kids, but for me, it was a big impact on my life.
Podcast. Ashley's boo-hooing right now. She's rolling on the floor crying. Okay, not exactly. She's come back to the microphone.
But she poured into me so much, unintentionally, and she was one of those core people in my life. For I think it was 4 or 5 years, even into her having her kid and everything, So
that's awesome.
Well, and I think as a as a leader in the church, you want those moments. Yeah. I mean, because there are many times that you're okay, why am I coming back? Why am I doing this? And I actually was talking to my therapist one day and I was okay, I don't know what it is, but I don't know why I need to be serving. And she was okay, you need to pray about it. You need to pray about it. I kid you not. We started a new month, and on the first of the month, you have a new Bible verse, you go over it. The next week, I had a new little friend from week number 1. So week number 2 comes, and he comes in, Miss Ashley. And, he's 5 years old. And I'm what is it, buddy? And he said, I remembered the Bible verse. And he did it all, did the motions. And I just burst into tears because I'm that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I don't have to see, we've talked a lot about planting seeds. I don't have to see the growth. As long as I'm planting those seeds and as long as I know, okay, that seed is going to grow one day. As long as we keep watering it, it's going to grow. It may not be from me, and that's perfectly fine. But as long as we're getting those seeds planted, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, so. That's good. That's really good. I like that. The whole full circle moment here.
Yeah.
We got Jahaley, who is coming back, and that's awesome. I love it. All right, Kristen, introduce yourself, Kristen.
All right. My name is Kristen Scott, and I have been serving at the Lake City in the nursery for probably about 7 years. And in the midst of that, speaking of those ladies, they have poured into my babies, and Haley has poured into mine since she was 7. So speaking of, and then Ashley's has also poured into my babies for a long, long time. So I got the opportunity to go to a class on messy art discipleship of tiny humans with sticky hands.
That's a phenomenal title.
And she was great. The speaker, her name was Brittany Compton. She was like a kindergarten teacher, and she was so fun and enthusiastic. And I enjoyed, she just kind of broke it down. She said, what's the first word we usually hear kids say? It's no, right? Because we tell kids no, no, no all the time. And she made just a point to say the church should be their yes. Like, we should be saying yes.
Good. I like that.
To these babies, whether they're in the nursery or, whichever class they're in.
Oh, I thought you were going to say in the sanctuary, because we do have some babies at the sanctuary. You might be grown, but still.
But I thought that was good. And then just realizing that these kids that we're pouring into, they are our future, They could be future pastors. And so we want them coming back over and over again so that we can pour into them, and they can grow in their relationship with Christ. The other thing that I took away from it was that Jesus always took time for people. He didn't, when the blind man, when he put the mud over his eyes, it wasn't like he could have just said you were healed, but he took the time to put the mud over his eyes and care for that man, so he used his senses to heal him. So they just talked a lot about use your senses, like help these kids to create, use art, let them get messy, let them have fun. And when you do that, when they create, you get a glimpse of the creator.
Yeah, I love that idea. As a matter of fact, when I was a student pastor, intentionally, not by default, when I was, a student pastor in Mayo, one of the things we did fairly regularly with the students was, we called worship without words, which was, there's a lot of different ways that we're going to do worship tonight. You singing or talking isn't going to be one of them. And so it may be a station where they wrote out prayers, a station where we took communion, where they, tasted the juice, the bread. And, we would always come up with new stations. And it was crazy because there was enough feedback where the adults were like, why can't we do that? We want to do that too, because it's a human thing to want to experience these things, but it's really important with tiny humans who they don't have a lot of words to keep doing the worshiping and the singing, and they need other senses to participate. So that's really cool. I like that a lot.
So, and then let's see. And then of course we talked about this earlier, but connection equals discipleship. So, love them and play with them. And just, meet their needs where they're at. So that, I just took a lot from it. I thought it was really neat just to kind of, because a lot of times we're keeping the babies happy and taking care of them, but also making their parents feel comfortable. We want their parents to feel like you're it is a ministry.
Fine. It's a ministry to the parents as well, for sure. And I think in nursery, that's even more important, because what you're doing in the nursery is, yes, you're building a relationship with that baby. You can hold that baby, love that baby, pray over that baby, but you're building a relationship with parents, because if that parent's leaving their baby with you, there's at least one person at this church I trust. It's that person that just held my baby for an hour, Exactly. And so it does build relationships. And I heard somebody say that seminary is not discipleship because it doesn't have relationship. Right. Seminary is, and that's not entirely true. If you're at seminary, you build relationships. But the point is, the classroom doesn't equal discipleship or spiritual formation. It just gives you information. So you have to have the relationship aspect for it to really be spiritual formation. So that's good. That's good. First year at Orange, we think. Like it?
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It brings me back.
How much swag have you picked up?
Only that first day, but I know.
I thought you were walking around with those little squishy toys.
Yes.
Okay, that was the
I thought my kids might like that.
Yeah, how many did you get?
Just one.
Yeah, I thought my kids might
They're
like
going to have
it.
to share.
Sure, okay,
yeah, they're
Kristen,
break
we hear
in
you.
5 seconds.
We hear you. All right, so Eddie, give us one thing, to kind of wind us down.
Now, Chip, I can't do one thing.
What if it's 3, but they're alliterated?
Okay. First of all, has anybody else noted that as it has gotten a late hour, that all the Gen Zers are gone?
Yes.
Well, except for me.
And Paul, okay, well.
Can I point out the only 2 Gen Zers that aren't in school doing some schoolwork right now?
Oh, they are?
No, there's only one.
Kaylee had a test.
Okay, well, I'll cut them some slack.
You don't know. Look at me. I'm just taking up for people I don't even know.
So here we go. All right, back on track. So here we go. Oddly enough, what I want to comment on tonight, Because honestly, I didn't get a whole lot new. Because what I do these things, all the coverages.
Look, I'm gonna out Eddie on the podcast when we were just getting ready to do this, and it was like, so you guys want us just to tell us something new? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And they was like, all right, I'll see y'all later. I mean, but the truth is, how many years have you been coming to
I've been doing
Orange?
this for a long time.
Like,
and I've been to the conferences.
We took a break right around COVID and everything. We've been coming back for 3 years, but this. Like, we've been coming for a while.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know how many long. Michael could tell you if he was here, but
he'd have to look it up in a notebook, but yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, a lot. And then on top of that, in all honesty, I didn't make one workshop today. None. I was signed up.
What?
None. And I was looking forward to it. I really was. I had selected a few that I thought I hadn't been to before, and I was looking forward to them. And it just didn't happen. And as we say around here, it just so happens, never just happens. And
that does sound like something we'd say.
Yeah. So, but the whole point. So I guess what I wanted to say is, I think what I wanted to talk about or mention today was the theme of this year, which at first, I wasn't crazy about, but I thought that's pretty good. The art of we, W-E, and I think that is the big takeaway for me this year. Just a reminder of the art of we and how it is we work together, we connect, we work together. And I think part of Orange that is always special for me is seeing the we. And as I say that, I look around the room, I'm thinking to see leaders from all three locations who, love Jesus and love kids and love students and Chris, as we were talking earlier, just having an opportunity to hang out with them and see how committed they are to serving children and students, and just to have a chance to say thank you to them, and then get to know guys like Corey, that I hadn't spent a lot of time with, and being able to build those relationships, I think is really neat, and just hearing about the passion that we have for all of this. And I would say one thing, I should explain the reason I didn't make those workshops. One is I ran into a young student pastor, and he was with his soon-to-be location pastor, who was in a transition from the lead pastor at the time. It wasn't multi-site like us; it was a single church. So they had a lead pastor, and this guy, the young guy, was the pastor who was going to become the new pastor. And we got to talking a little bit about transitioning.
So you had some experience in that.
Yeah, I told him, I said, well, we just went through that a little bit, and I was able to
recorded
share
a podcast about it.
Yeah, and maybe you understand this, Chip. I don't know, because the young new pastor was nervous, and what started the conversation is the student pastor and this new pastor. He's got a position now, but I don't know what it is. The guy who's going to become the pastor. They were talking about, I wonder how this is going to work. What if this doesn't work? And what if this? And what if that? And, what will the people think? And what will the lead senior pastor change his mind? And he's going through they're just going through these scenarios. I said, whoa. I said, I've been through all that. And let me tell you, this can work, know? And so I got to be an encouragement to them as we talked a little bit through our transition, and told them they should listen to the podcast. Yeah, and we did that. But anyway,
dozens plus 2.
Yeah, there you go. Add two. So anyway, we're up to a baker's dozen now, right? But anyway, so that was really cool. And then secondly, God let me run into, as I was going into another of the workshops, an old pastor friend of mine. You know him, and the interesting thing about this guy, the first thing he brought up is he's my age. We began talking because we were talking about this season of retirement that we're looking at, and we were sharing so many things that we have in common on that. And he laughed. He said, you know what? You do realize, don't you, the first time we met, you and I were 30-year-old pastors at a youth camp. And I said, I know, Spike. That's true. That's his name, Spike. But anyway, and so just having that few moments. And so I think what I wanted to kind of finish up with is to say to you guys, to encourage you guys, and maybe anybody who is listening. I was listening to a podcast not too long ago, and it was an older pastor. And Chip, I think I told you about this. It was an older pastor on the podcast that I had some respect for, and I was listening to him, and he made a comment. He said, let me tell you what's the best years of your life. Which decade is the best year? Maybe he got asked that question. What's the best decade of life? And I'm just hanging on it. I'm thinking, oh, man, he's got to say 60s because 60s have been pretty good for me. And he surprised me by saying 70s. And I thought, why 70s? You know, most of my people I know are dying in their 70s. But, and here's what he said. And when he said it, it just exploded in my head. And I thought it is so true. Even though I'm not there yet, I'm close enough to begin to early stages of experience. He said, in your 70s, you begin to enjoy the harvest of all the seeds you've planted in your life. And that's what's happening now with me. And
that's really good.
That's what happened today, you know, when I talked to Spike and we're able to share about some things. And that's what happens when I get to hear these stories of these young people like the Carters and Treys and others, Eli's and other people, you know, these, and when someday these kids that you spent time with in the nursery and in preschool and in 252 and in student ministry, someday you're going to see fruit. You're going to see the fruit from the seed that you're planting right now. And that, Buffy, is what refreshes me. That's what refreshes me when I see and experience that fruit and I begin to watch. And then to finish off my evening, I got a call that I knew I needed to take during the last session. And it was from a lady that I'm going to do her husband's funeral Saturday. And so I was talking with her, and she reminded me that she and her husband were charter members, and they're the ones who led me to the Holiday Inn. They were at an organizational meeting that we had, and they heard me say, you know, we got to find a place to meet. We had no place to meet, and they went looking through town for places we could meet. Went to the Holiday Inn and asked them if we could use their room, and they said, yeah, we can rent it. You know, told us about the rental of it and all. And they called me and they told me, and they said, hey, we'll meet you down there. And I said, okay. And then she told me, she said, my husband loved you to death. And I said, really? He said, she said, yeah. She said, I always thought you were a man of God. And I said, really? Why? You know, I mean, I'm just a guy, you know, I really am. And she said, because we went with you. I forgot all this. But again, seeing seed become a harvest, you know, and I'm looking at her, I'm listening to her on the phone, and she says, because we were standing there with you when we went into the Holiday Inn, I forgot all of this. And she says, and they said they could rent the room, and they told you how much it would be. And you said, she said, you said, okay. And you took your own credit card and paid for that. And I thought, well, yeah, that's all we had, you know. And she said, you know, she said, we never forgot that. And that shaped things in our life because you didn't even know if anybody was going to show up next Sunday. You didn't know if anybody was going to ever sit in this room, but your faith was such. And so she's going on. My point is, man, the seed that you're planting now, I know you don't think about it and you think, will it ever, one day you'll see that seed. It's going to bloom and it's going to blossom and the harvest is going to be incredible. And so to me, the blessing of this conference was seeing the art, being reminded of the art of we, and of all the people that we, and particularly you and I, we have the opportunity to pastor. And Matt's not here tonight, but the we of that, and all of the people who come together to make this happen that God uses. It's incredible. And I think, you know, we're the ones sometimes that are on the podcast, and we're the ones that are on the platform, and we're the ones that everybody sees. They don't see you guys in the nursery changing diapers, and they don't see you on Wednesday night when you're toiling. Pardon me? Yeah. And that's what it is. That's what it's about. My point is, it is a we, the art of we, and I think it's so big. And I think so the blessing to me is, once again, seeing the we of this crowd and these folks that are sitting in this room, and what a blessing it is to me.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite sayings that we say at the Orchard is, if all you see Sunday morning, you're missing out, because it is so easy to forget that we're a part of something that's a whole lot bigger than we're aware of most of the time. That's true of the kingdom as a whole, but it's even true of the church. Like, you know, we don't talk about numbers all the time, right? But on Easter Sunday, we had over 1,700 people on Easter Sunday. 1,722. Thank you, Haley. I don't think anybody who is unfamiliar with the Orchard and who was sat in one of those experiences would have guessed that, because there's a few hundred adults in the room. There's 50, 60 kids in kids' church and volunteers. You don't get that. But when you realize that this happens multiple times in multiple places, we're all a part of one church and other locations, it adds up. And so that room of 7 kids that you're teaching in preschool is happening twice in Lake City, twice in Live Oak, once in Branford. You added up that middle school, high school small group, the other age, the impact that we're having on a region is tangible. And I fully believe, back to Impact Tomorrow, that we really are impacting tomorrow right now, specifically in Next Gen Ministries. And because of what you guys are doing as leaders, North Central Florida will look different 10, 20, 30 years into the future. And that's exciting.
Yeah, even if you don't see it.
That's right.
Even if you don't see it, it is happening and it's there. But you'll see it one day.
That's good. Well, speaking of exciting and not seeing anything, I'm ready for bed. So we'll wind it down, and we'll catch you guys next week on Let's Talk About That.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website to stay connected. Your support is what makes this podcast impactful. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share the episode with a friend, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who can be encouraged through these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you to live out your faith this week. Keep the conversations alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.